Hello, everyone, and welcome back to DaVinci Guitar. I'm Abigail, this is Jim, and today we're continuing our series of the triads, but this time we're actually going to talk about triads in progressions. Now, progressions, we haven't talked a lot about that in the past, but it's not too complicated, so let's head on over to some theory time. So progressions are something that you see anytime you pick up a sheet of music. Anytime you pick up a chord chart and you look at the chords, those are all chord progressions happening. And there are some common ones that we see repeated over and over again. For example, in the key of G, maybe you've seen, if you're playing in the key of G, right, we're all strumming along, maybe you've seen a chord progression go like this, G, C, D. Well, there's actually a way we can notate that because it's a very common chord progression. We're starting with G, which is the first chord, right? It's the first note, first chord, so it's a 1. Then we go to C, which we count up, G, A, B, C, 4. So it's the fourth note, also the fourth chord, so we can call it 4. And then we go to D, which, right, is 5. So we can go G, C, D, and we can call it 1, 4, 5. So it's a very common chord progression that we call the 1, 4, 5 chord progression. You can apply it in any key whatsoever by simply taking the first note, calling it the 1 chord, the major 1 chord, going to the fourth, the 4 chord, the major 4 chord, and the fifth chord, which is the major, and that's the 5 chord. And so you just play the fifth note as the root and make it a major, and you have a 1, 4, 5 in any key whatsoever. So that's the basis for a chord progression there. Now we can actually do something called chord voicing, which is where we're going to actually make triads. And what we're actually going to do is make the root note stay in the same position, stay in the same general area, and it's actually going to produce different voicings of the chords than what we'd normally hear. We could technically say a G, C, and D. Why don't we go G, C, D? But chord voicing does something a little special where we actually stay in one position. So we're going to be staying right down here, frets 1 through 5. And we're going to do something called chord voicing, which is where we're going to use our triad forms and we're going to take the knowledge that we have of how to form a chord, right? So if we would say a G chord, we know it's a G, B, and D. We're starting in frets 1 through 5. Where's a G note? Ah, third fret, that's a G note. Okay, now we're going to go to a C note, or we're going to go to a C chord. What are the notes of a C chord? C, E, and G. What's the closest one to G? Ah, look at that. Hey, the fifth note of C is G, so we can stay right there and use our second inversion triad form. And then we have to go to a D chord. We don't want to go all the way up here. We want to stay right down here, so we have to think about the notes of a D chord, a D, F sharp, and an A. Oh, look at that. An F sharp is just one fret down from G, and it's the third note, so we have to use our first inversion form. So you can see how all of this kind of works in theory. It's simply knowing those chords. You have to be able to spell chords really well. Tip for you, write them out on flashcards or Quizlet or some program and learn those chord names so that you're able to do this very quickly in any position whatsoever. You just know the chords, you know the forms, you know that the root is the root, the third note correlates to the first inversion, the fifth note correlates second inversion, and you're right on your way. So now with that theory knowledge in place, that theoretical knowledge in place, we're going to go ahead and jump on over with Jim here, and we're going to chord voice a 1, 4, 5 progression in the key of G. So G is our root, C is our fourth note, our fourth chord, also fourth note, and D is that fifth. So Jim is going to go ahead and play the open chords that a band might be playing, right? And what I'm going to do, what you would do, is I'm going to chord voice by staying in one position and knowing the notes of the chord, knowing the triad forms and their inversions, and we're going to play right like this. Jim, count us on in.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So G here. Now I need to go to that C, fifth note is G. D, F sharp, and back to the G. So that's how you play it, right? So you were able to see how instead of me jumping all over the board, people think that looks fancy. It's not practical at all to be doing that. And you actually create something way more beautiful when you go. Hear that melody? Versus just going. Staying on the root, it's not quite as pretty. We want to really make music beautiful. We want to put thought into our music, and that's what you do with chord voicing. And you can apply that in any key, just like with anything. Now we're going to go ahead and chord voice for minor, a minor 1-4-5, which would be a G minor, a C minor, and then a D minor. So we're going to do the same thing. Now you're just going to see how I think about this, while Jim's going to be playing all the various open chords and some of the inversions we learned, and I'll go ahead and be playing the inversion forms for the triads, the minor triads. So Jim, count us on in.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Starting on G minor, root form, going to C minor, basing off the 5th note G, going down to D minor, off that F, back to G minor, again, we're going to do it again. 2. Again, off that G note now, and then down here to that first inversion, back up to the root G minor. Perfect. That's a 1-4-5 in minor chord voiced. Again, here we have this melody instead of just going up the board. So much more pretty, so much more practical too as a player. Right? Just staying in one position, you can go so much faster. It's just a better way of playing. It's a smarter way of playing. So we hope that this DaVinci guitar lesson has been helpful for you as you learn the theory behind chord voicing and also how to do it. It's a little complicated, but it's at the same time, it's not. It takes a lot of brain work. But once you get that down and the memorization part of spelling chords, you're sailing right on your way. We hope that this lesson was beneficial to you. Let us know how you're able to apply this in your own playing. And we can't wait to see you next time. DaVinci Guitar, out.